Uh-oh.
Good afternoon to all of our live viewers and those who will catch us by replay. I am your host, Monica Leek, and we are here on PharSide Folios today as we're in the month of September and celebrating Be Kind to Editors and Writers Month. This is also Library Card Sign Up Month. So all of those, let's get those library cards activated. Make sure your kids have their library cards and adults as well, as so we can get those books and keep the circulation going. And it's also National Literacy Month. So support literacy and reading initiatives in your community as you are able. And then, of course, what else could be happening in September that it's Read a New Book Month? And what better book to read than a book by the authors that we're highlighting today, which is Argon Blue, and we're going to deep dive and talk into that. And we're excited about this month's special guest. And we're continuing with our author interviews and our daily posts here on the PharSide. So welcome to the PharSide, Deb Heim and Ross Hightower.
Thank you.
Hi, we're excited to be here.
Now, Ross Hightower and Deb Heim have been partners in crime for more than 36 years. And while Ross built a career as a professor and Deb worked on 4 advanced degrees, they managed to raise 2 wonderful people and launch them into the world. And when Ross started writing his first novel, PharSide, they never dreamed that they would work together. But after a kind of a rocky beginning, they discovered they loved writing together. So after a few beers, intense conversations, a couple of arguments, here we come to Argon Blue, which is the prequel of Spirit Song novel. And of course, there are many more to come. And so again, we say welcome, Deb and Ross.
Hi, happy to be here.
All right. Now, Argon Blue is a team effort. And I mean, what brought the two of you together to write other than just being lifelong partners?
Well, I wrote my first novel, PharSide, and while I was writing that one, I started to think about this novel, Argon Blue, and so when I finished PharSide, I started on that, and I got about halfway through the novel, and I got stuck. And what we were doing is I would write, and then on the weekends, Deb would read what I wrote, and we'd talk about it. But so at that point, we started talking more about what should happen, developing the plot together and characters and so forth. So it ended up being a team effort. And so that's kind of the way we work. I'm writing the Spirit Song trilogy myself. And we have a series of prequel novels that kind of inform the trilogy, and those we do together. And I do most of the writing, but we develop the story together.
Yep. And a big part is we each have a different perspective on things. I think Ross tends to do more the interpersonal stuff, and with my my undergraduate degree in English and with a minor in Marxian economics and all kinds of other reading and whatever, I tend to take the broader sociological and psychological and historical piece.
So she'll talk about like these big social factors, and then when she's done, I'll say, yeah, but what's the plot?
Right.
What happens? What's the story?
Right.
But it works out because the things that she adds add a lot of depth to the story. The kind of the more beyond what's actually happening on the screen.
And so do you see that kind of weave the voices of your characters as well as to, as their perspectives may be reflective of your individual voices as writers?
I probably say that the voices of the characters are mostly me, right? Because I do most of the writing. but clearly they're influenced by what we talk about, our
Right.
discussions. So she'll bring a point of view, especially in the one that we're working on now, which has a lot to do with institutional racism and sexism and so forth. So there's a
caste
lot.
systems and
Like I can sympathize, I can empathize, but I don't know it in the same way that Deb could. So that in that case is definitely, she's definitely influencing the characters and their voices.
Yeah. And we also spend a lot of time like what's the motivation for this character? And he's looking at it as a person, like this person, what's their motivation? And I'm often looking at it as a member of this cast and a member of this, and having been raised this way and having been told this and living in this culture and within this, what would make sense to them and what would make sense to other people and what causes a system that is so oppressive to continue, because somebody wins. So the people that are losing in the system, how does that impact them? So, yeah.
Right.
And so, given that, you both bring such, different experiences, and then your, the background from, your Deb, your advanced degrees, and then Ross, you're being a professor, and you have all of these, kind of these gifts, so to speak, come together to produce something like the Argon Blue, and then you have, moved to from a prequel, that sort of sets things and gives things background. What is kind of that benefit of having that partnership to
it's just a different perspectives.
that brings kind of the
Right.
different voices.
Plus, we're really good at research. Really good at research. So for this book, like I had to research and how a piece of bronze sculpture would have been made in medieval times, and I found something. And he's using the writing, but also that's informed by a lot of the stuff we've read over, and so that kind of
Yeah. So the question said, I'm an academic and she has advanced degrees, but she's probably a better academic than I ever would be. She's a way better teacher than I ever was, so we're both sort of academic, and that kind of informs the way that we approach writing. We approach it as, obtaining all the knowledge that we need, and then we put that into the characters in the world.
Right. And what would make sense to the reader. Right. So if you're trying to get a point across of something, how do you, when you structure, how do you get the concepts? But they're also, it's stories and people. This isn't it's obviously theoretical because it's not real, but it's real people.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Right.
And of course, this particular book is the prequel to the trilogy. So how do you maintain, the consistency, if you're writing backwards, and if you've got like maybe the first or second story of the trilogy, and then you're coming back, and giving the prequel, how do you make sure that you're maintaining, the integrity of the story, as well as, the timelines, the setting, and all of those different pieces, in order, to keep it low.
Yeah.
Right.
Spreadsheets.
That's a huge problem. When you gotta use Excel, right? But when I was writing Spirit Sight, the people in this kind of world, the ones that are oppressed, they're peaceful, community, family base, and I started to think, well, how did they learn to start fighting back?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the origin of Argon Blue, and I really wasn't thinking of this grand arching story when I started that. But as Argon Blue started to develop, I started to see, okay, this is a big complex story. It's going to take 9 books to tell the story. And then what you're talking about became a huge issue.
Right.
Right. What happens when, when something happens, you have to remember that so that later on in a book that's maybe 3 or 4 books later, you're consistent with what happened before. So
Yeah.
it's a big undertaking to try to keep all of that straight.
Right. And there's also distance. Like he has a map. I don't know if you click on at the beginning on his website, it's a map, and the map has distances. They don't mark them out, but he knows, well, it would take about 2 weeks to walk.
Right.
It would take about this long. It would take 4 weeks if it's in the winter. And so that has to be factored in.
But we're academics, so we like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's so nerdy. It's so awesome.
But Argren Blues sets off some sort of arcs that go, that affect the rest of the saga.
Right.
And so
some of which he didn't know before, like.
But that's what I love about this kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of pieces, and when you read the books, you get to a certain point, you'll see something that happens, and if you've read Argren Blue, you'll go, oh, I know where that came from.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping that the fan base that's whoever they might be, that they'll see like these Easter eggs, that you can read the book and still get it. And it's totally cool. You don't need to know what happened before, which is the other thing that's like revealing enough so that you can move the story forward. When you have a series, you cannot do it. It's just gross when you're reading this like info dump of this is what happened before, blah, 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 blah. And it just slows everything to a crawl, right? So he's figured out, and sometimes together we figure out ways to like, oh, well, if this character does this or says this, then that kind of lets you know what happened before. But each of the books, you ought to be able to read them.
And alone.
Alone.
Right? But if you've read the previous books, you'll have a much richer experience.
Right.
Great way, understand. Okay, understand it. Okay, I can,
You're breaking
possibly read it out instead of going to there's a prequel.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Sure.
that kind of thing. So, okay, and not because I missed the prequel. This is Rita, so we're gonna copy of our our reading a new that we are reading. All right. So as it the story itself opens kind of like with this attempted ambush, and I mean it's a really really vivid opening, as you see the different characters positioned, and some having nerves, being nervous, and waiting on the time to go, or waiting on the sign or the signal to go. But you've got that opening that introduces us to Alar, who's a rebel, who's the first fight appear. He doesn't appear as confident. And how does that opening, that opening fight and play into his own journey of discovery?
Yeah, and so I think the title of that chapter is More Rabble Than Rebels. So this small group, they see themselves as the rebels, but really they're sort of small-time criminals, right? They're living on the edge of society. The Empire doesn't even know they exist. Right?
The whole idea of the Alaos rebelling, everybody laughs.
Everybody laughs, right? So, and you can see in that first scene that they really have no idea what they're doing. But there's a moment in that scene that's critical for the rest of Alar's arc, and that is when he's thinking, unlike the fellow rebels, that he knows that killing Imperial soldiers is not going to win their freedom. Right. And that shows that he has more vision than the other people that he's with. Mm-hmm. He just is young and inexperienced. He doesn't have any way of seeing what that alternative is. Right. And then as he goes through the book, and he gains his magical ability, which is also obviously really helpful, and he takes on leadership responsibilities, and he becomes responsible for the people that are killed and for the welfare of his fellow rebels. And there's the carnage and violence of the battle that's toward the end. He starts to it reinforces the idea that he believes there must be an alternative. Mm-hmm. So there's a scene at the end, which is one of my favorite scenes I've ever written, that he's talking to Reagan, and Reagan talks to him about what's going to happen to the Alios people if they go and get into this war with the Empire, and she offers them an alternative. And so he's ready at that point to grasp that alternative, and that obviously is going to go through the rest of the series. But he also turns it back on her and says, and gives her an alternate vision, and that change in her is what drives the rest of the series. So that whole scene at the beginning is there to show how incompetent they are, what their goals are, but also to show that moment where you see that Alar is somebody who's, somebody to be reckoned with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you kind of see at the beginning that they're, really, they don't really seem to have clear-cut goals. It's almost like if you could compare it to, Robin Hood's band of merry men, kind of rob from the rich. But yeah. Or just, to say, okay, this is where we're gonna, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna, this is our site. We're gonna ambush this group. We're gonna free those who are, are the enslaved, and not being fully equipped or prepared, but we want to do something.
Mm-hmm. Right, and even if they freed those their fellow countrymen there, what's the impact of that long term? I mean, it's not that it's a bad thing, but beyond that, the day-to-day kind of those simple goals, they don't really have a plan. Right.
That the whole purpose of the book is.
And I'm really happy that you saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we've got this whole, I guess, the whole idea of, spirit luck, that he's, that Alar seems to have, and, how does that luck, that, that magic, that gift, that he, comes into, help him navigate some of those life-threatening or, tough situations or decision-making places that he encounters, throughout the story.
Well, spirit luck is actually sort of an archaic phrase. If you read Spirit Sight, you'll see that the Alios in the past had kind of a shamanistic belief that there were spirits in the world, and there are certain people who could communicate with those spirits. They were called Satmin. So spirit luck is a time from the phrase is from a time when they believed in spirits. And so that's why when he first mentions that phrase, he says his mother said he had spirit luck, whatever that meant, right? Because it's the meaning has been lost. But the magic that they have in this world is shamanistic in the sense that it's based on spirits. There's not a lot of it in Argent Blue, not as much as there is in the later books or in the trilogy books, right?
Yeah.
But his ability to enter the realm of the dead is obviously a really powerful ability, because time seems to stop in the physical realm, the realm of people. So he can go in there and appear somewhere else almost instantly. So it's obviously a huge advantage.
But he can't stay too long.
Right. All magic has to have limits, and costs. And so the limit to his realm walking is that if he encounters the soul spirits, he'll be stuck there. They'll rip his spirit from his body, and he'll be stuck in the realm of the dead.
So he can go in, but he can't hang out.
Right. And so you also couldn't, for example, open a door, right? Because it's such a simple thing. So it gives him a tool to use, but he has to find how to use that tool in any given situation.
Right.
And that's, to me, I like two things about magic in fantasy novels. One is something that has a bit of emotional content, some personality. And again, you don't really see it in Argent Blue, but you really see it in Spirit Sight and the other trilogy books. And the other thing is that it gives you tools to solve problems, but it doesn't solve the problem automatically.
Right.
So Alar has to figure out, how do I use this? What can I use? How can I use this magic in this situation to solve this problem?
We've seen a lot of books. We read a lot of fantasy books where the author's convenience, magic, boo, boo, boo.
Right.
Like it's like
whatever they need.
Whatever they need, then suddenly the magic works.
Yeah.
And that
like Harry Potter.
Sometimes, feels like lazy writing sometimes. And don't we got the Harry Potter books are right there, right over there. We watched them with the kids. We read them
many times.
Many times. We loved them.
Always a new magical wrinkle, whatever's needed,
Yeah, and that was one of the things he and I go through, and I poke real hard at these things, like, hang on. What's the limit to this? If this works this way, then how does that work? And how does that work? So that So that's a really good thing now. But when our kids were young, they were like, "Oh my God, you're running another book." Well, hang on. If you use the logic of what they talk for, then this is really just doesn't even work.
Yeah, it's a good trait to have as an author.
Yeah, not so much as a parent. Like, we just want to watch the movie. Shut up.
Yeah, but the magic is obviously part of fantasy.
Sometimes in fantasy, some authors may have a cookie cutter approach. A certain magic that appears, and it's like Biddy Bobbity Boo,
right? Yeah.
Bobbity Boo. Of this kind of situation. There are certain situations which the magic works, or there are conditions that are on that it makes how a character responds, because the environment wasn't right, or they missed the door opening, or so it definitely makes sense, for the story that way.
Yeah. And that's actually, I would say, the thing about this whole system.
Go ahead. You're breaking up a little bit. So was there a question actually, or?
You might be breaking up with her too.
Let's see.
I was trying to get us
Can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah, but you're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah.
I know that one of the questions you asked was that you sent us was what makes this system and these books different. And that was one that we really wanted to make sure to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna have you answer that one.
Oh, okay. Well, so when Spirit Sight is a really kind of epic story, right? And when I wrote Argon Blue, I really wanted it to be sort of a kind of a faster pace, more lighthearted. And I think I achieved that. It's pretty fast paced. It's coming of age. It's got, young love, some political intrigue, and some twists.
Economics.
And some
art.
A little bit of art history, by the way. And some of the reviews have kind of confirmed that. But I actually read it again recently, believe it or not. And I think one thing that I really liked about it is this group of characters, the rebels, the young Alios rebels. They're just fun, right? They come together and they learn to love each other and to believe in each other as they gain confidence. And I just really like them, and as a reader when I was reading it. So I think that's one of the, the things I've heard from other people who've read the book. And I think that's one of the strongest parts of the book. And again, like I said, I love really epic stories. And this has the kernels of the pieces that are going to affect the rest of the saga.
Right.
But it's a fun read. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's what I hear repeatedly from people is it's just kind of a story that pulls you along.
Okay. So do you find that that fantasy is your niche and this is the path that you're on, or is there something else, another area of writing that you'd like to explore?
Well, I have like 5 more books on this series to write. So I'm going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah.
But we had been talking about, even before I started writing this, a series of books based on 2 characters called Nick and Alex,
who are
like supercharged versions of us.
Yeah. So, and there's going to be a supernatural element to that too. Right.
So that will be fantasy. It'll be an urban fantasy.
But urban fantasy.
Yeah. So we're stuck in fantasy.
We kind of are. Like I started reading M.K. Jemisin, and that her urban, and I, that whole idea of like, in that case, it was spirits. You become an avatar of a place, and this is not that, but I know when I walk into places, I feel a spirit of a place. Like, and there are some places that have no spirit to me, have no soul, and other places where I feel it hard. And so that's going to be kind of part of it. Is one of them literally hears spirits that live there, and they're yakking in his ear all the time. It really irritates him. But they impact what's going on. And so there's the story of what's happening with these 2 characters and what they're doing in their life. And then there's this whole other level of.
Right. So that's in the schedule, but it's
in the schedule. It's way down there. I have to retire. We have to finish these.
Right.
But I'm already collecting. Man, I'm collecting all the time. I'm like, oh, that'd be good in the book. That'd be good in the book. But then he always says, Deb, okay, that's a one-liner.
Yeah.
That's a moment.
Where's the plot?
Where's the plot? Going, okay. Oh, plot. Okay. So we're looking forward to that.
Like it's all on the spreadsheet. It's in the spreadsheet.
It's in the spreadsheet.
How did you know?
That spreadsheet is blank right now. There's nothing on it.
So what is something that you hope that readers will take out of this particular book that will maybe connect them to make them go out and make sure they tie into all
the other worlds?
Well, I mean, it's a fun read. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important thing to take apart. But the thing is, you don't know from this what you're going to see, but I can guarantee you that there'll be pieces from this that later on, when if you read the other books, you'll go, oh, okay, right. And there's some of the same characters, some of the things that they do here affect later, and that the chapter at the end that you probably haven't gotten to, the very last chapter,
sets up,
feels like it doesn't belong. But it does.
It does. Trust us, it does. And my mother has read these books, and she's 86, and she said, "You're gonna have to finish these before I die."
So pressure, man.
and she reads vociferously. She has read the canon. She has read all the modern classics. She's read all of Alice Walker, she's read Sula, she's read, she's read the deep, difficult, like modern classic books. And she said, I don't like fantasy, but I really like these. So we're looking for elderly, vociferous readers.
Yeah, actually, 2 of my beta readers were older women who have never read fantasy.
And
they loved it.
Right. And the other piece is there's art in it. I don't know
how do I market to them.
I don't know. We're figuring that out. But I think people like literary fiction would like these books. That like well-written, well-crafted fiction.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That has a lot of different things. And I think the art, that's what I'm hoping pulls people in.
And the art will be, and the rest, all the prequels will have some little bits of art.
Yeah. We actually have planned we're going to try to do a plein air where we have artists actually draw, because some of our previous
at our next launch,
our previous launches have included, I've written a ballad that we sang, and we did a chant, and we had parts of it acted out. And so for this book, that was at our local brewery. They brewed a beer based on the book
called The Black Husky.
And that's in the book. Yeah. But we want to make it like engage, like it's a real world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of hope that's what happens too, is that people fall in and go, they want to be in this world.
Oh, and you guys have both done an amazing job of, creating the world, the language, evokes feeling and emotion and creates the images for the reader. So like when you do your launch, if you have someone who's, like painting as you share an excerpt, I think that's amazing. And I'm listening to your creative ideas, and I'm like, oh wow, a ballad, a beer. I mean, it all goes with this. It goes with the setting.
Where actually I am trying to pull together. He thinks I'm insane, and I am, just because, but I'm going to do it. A Ren Fair, our Ren Fair in River West, which is a neighborhood in Wisconsin. We hang out all the time. There's a park right across the street. The brewery has done outdoor events before. So we want to do, and so right now I'm trying to find vendors who would fit in to a fair that you could imagine in this world. And that's where we want the artists. We want to have people that make bows.
Like a blacksmith.
A
bowyer. Yeah.
So, yeah.
She's crazy.
I am. Society for Creative Anachronism. We want people dueling. We want like all of that. Because that fits, right? And that'll bring people in, and that'll, people can sell stuff. And when we've done launches, we always have other authors. And so we try to make it like a community event. Right. So that's what we want. It's going to be big. I'm going to be exhausted when it's done.
Big.
Oh, we are really excited about this particular book, and especially about being close to finishing. We'll finish it. We can be dying of the rest. This is a reminder to those who are watching us live and those who will catch us by replay that this is still Read a New Book Month. So we're reading a new book, and our new book is Argrin Blue. So Argrin Blue, go check it out. Go check it out. We're going to ask Deb and Ross, best way to connect with them on social media and find their work. So what's the best way for people to find you on socials?
If you go to my website, rosshightower.com, you can find a link to all my socials. I have a Linktree link, so you can find me there. That's probably the easiest way. And you can email me, or I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I've started doing TikTok, so that's an adventure.
We've both been doing TikTok, and it's been I don't know. But yeah, and then the next one right after that is somebody, like, I don't even know what they're doing. So I don't even want to talk about some of the things. I'm like, why did that show up on my feed?
Yeah, it's all part of the adventure.
It's part of the adventure. So that was not what I was looking for. But, you know what I mean? But and Facebook, it's Ross Hightower, right?
I think it's like Ross Hightower 3. I can never remember. That's why I send them to my website.
Yeah.
And you can, if you go to my website, you can find my blog, some short stories, information about the books, and all my links.
Yeah, all the links for me are there too. So.
Yep.
Well, on behalf of PharSide Folios, we'd like to thank our guests, Deb Heim and Ross Hightower, for spending time with us this afternoon. And we definitely wish you continued success with Argrin Blue and the wonderful projects to come. Finishing out the series, as well as the many projects that are going to spring out of this work. And I'm looking to hear about this Renaissance fair.
I know.
I'm excited already. I'm looking for like a jousting event and a turkey leg.
That's what we are talking about. Turkey legs.
Yeah, we'll let you know the progress on that.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us this afternoon. This has really been fun. I've enjoyed reading the book myself, and definitely want to make sure that those who follow us and who are avid readers, are able to take a dive into this world of fantasy with Argrin Blue, and that it will connect them to the other books. And you'll have some new fans and new readers as a result. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Monica.
Bye. Thank you so much, Monica.
Okay, so make sure, to our audience, make sure you're staying tuned to the PharSide Co-Ed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts as we celebrate Be Kind editors and writers, Library Card Sign-Up Month, National Literacy Book Month, and Read a New Book Month during the month of September. So until next time, many roots, many voices are part of the infinite story. So plant your seed and have a great and wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.
So do we log off?
I guess so.